Welcome to the Tucson Astrologers Guild December 13, 2024 presentation about what's coming up in 2025. We have two speakers tonight, and the first one is our illustrious Susie Cox. Without further ado.
Thank you, Gail. Thank you, Gail. Hi, everyone. I'm so glad that you're here. There are like 28 people here, so this is great. And Zoom, wonderful. Gee, everybody's curious about what's happening in the world, huh? Gee, not surprised, right? Yes. How many people here are new at astrology? Okay, I'm going to start from scratch. And yeah, okay. All right. So let's start off with the New Year's Day 2025, and so just so everybody knows, it's a picture of where the planets were in the sky when at this time. And what I did is that this is in Tucson, Arizona, and and the planets are divided up into 12 equal houses. I use equal house system. And so the planets represent archetypes, like Mars is male and Venus is female. The signs of the personalities. I'm a Gemini, different personalities. And then the house is the area where it shows. And what I say is that the planets live in the house, right? They've each got a house that they like to live in, right? And so houses are individual areas in a person's life or over here. And so a little bit of astronomy. Here we have the Earth in the very center, and the Earth rotates on its axis, of course. The arrow on the left-hand side points to the eastern horizon, and of course, everything rises in the east. All the planets rise there, all the signs rise there, and which creates a rising sign, right? And so what happened on a person's day of birth is this is sunrise, noonday sun, sunset, midnight, back up to sunrise. And as the planets were rising and setting, the signs were rising too. The whole thing rotates around, freeze frames when a baby is born. So that's really what we're looking at here. And then the red and blue lines in the center is the geometry between the planets, or this is the mandala, right? You look at the planets in the sky, there's a mandala in the sky. I've color-coded these angles so they're easier for us to read, red lines and blue lines. Red lines are squares, oppositions, or challenging or trying to figure things out, how you get things work together. Blue lines, talents and gifts, what you're best at, things go natural. And we've got a perfect grand trine here, which is great. So the overall picture here is these are the challenges or kind of the intention of the chart. The red lines, the blue lines are the results or the talents. And then you combine it all together to an overall picture of what does this chart mean? My clients are like, what does my chart mean? That's really what people want to know, And so it's not just, oh, your moon's here, your Venus is there. What is the overall picture, right? So any rate, okay. Any questions with basic astrology? Got this? Good. Okay. Now I want to look at this, where the transits are, where the planets are right now. And the main thing that's happening right now is, well, Pluto's gone into Aquarius, big deal. It was November 19th, Pluto went to Aquarius, it's going to be there for 20 years till 2044. So it's a really long stint, and that's huge. The other thing that's triggering it off is that Mars, now this is on New Year's Day, Mars is opposing Pluto. And Mars is in Leo, opposing Pluto in Aquarius, and the wild thing is that Mars is doing a retrograde. So the first time was November 3rd, right before the election. The retrograde will be January 3rd, 2025. The last and Mars retrogrades all the way back to 17 degrees Cancer. So it retrogrades a long time, and it will come back and oppose Pluto the last time, April 26th. So we got from November to April, that's craziness. Pluto, I was thinking, God, there could be a civil war. I mean, this would be perfect for a civil war. That didn't happen, but we've got kind of a class war that's happening now, that's very strong. So any rate, this is people not being happy and fighting for their rights between now and April, the end of April. So it's a long time of this tough transit. Now, me, I'm Miss Positivity. I've got Jupiter rising. I like everything really happy, and pretty, right? And some of the transits are a little rough right now. So, now I wrote this because astrology is so predictable. I wrote this like 3 or 4 months ago, because you can see the eclipses and everything way ahead. So no problem. In the last week, I've had to rewrite it. Since when Pluto went into Aquarius, everything was different, so I had to rewrite like a big chunk of it after Pluto went to Aquarius. So note to me, don't do it that early next time. Right? So okay. So the other major thing that's happening is Pluto's gone into Aquarius. We have all the outer planets that are entering a new sign. All of them. I mean, within like a year, which is very rare. So we got Pluto in Aquarius. Uranus hasn't gone into Gemini yet, but it's already trine. So Uranus going into Gemini. Pluto in Aquarius is, we're talking about this later, but Pluto in Aquarius is we the people, grassroots. It's everybody getting together, and internet is a perfect example of it, right? Uranus going to Gemini is speaking your mind. Everybody's saying, "Hey, this is important to me," and everybody finding their voice, a collective voice. Uranus in Gemini, and the other big thing that's happening is both Neptune and Saturn are going into Aries, like within a week of each other. I mean, that's huge. And Ray Merriman called it the Aries vortex, which is the wildest thing, because if you look at this, Pluto trine Uranus, the Aries vortex is right in the middle. So it's like a grand trine and two sextiles, right, that are pointing to that. So it's a really unusual thing with all the planets moving into all the planets moving into a new sign, pretty much at the same time. So we are on the verge, maybe on the verge. I don't say on the verge. We have started a revolution. I mean, this is like a new, and I've always said the Aquarian age is not going to start like ding, 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 2 o'clock this afternoon. The Aquarian age starts. Nope. It's going to start with global revolution, which guess what is happening? All right. So any rate, it's kind of nice to have this grand trine that's here. We'll talk about that a little bit later because that's a grand trine that's going to happen for a while. Okay. So overview. What am I going to be presenting here? Planetary alignments. I've already looked at some of them, Pluto and Aquarius and Uranus going to Gemini and all that. Chinese New Year. We got a new, Chinese New Year that's starting. It happens, every year, which I think that kind of filters or combines with all the rest of it. Retrogrades. We not only, of course, Mercury retrogrades 3 times a year, 3 weeks each time, but this year we have Venus and Mars retrograding also. Now, the outer planets, like Pluto's retrograde 6 months of the year. So the outer planets always retrograde. And but at any rate, it's nice to see, it's interesting to see that all the inner planets plus Mars are retrograding. So this year, the moon nodes are changing signs. That lasts for about a year and a half. That's in a sign. And it has been in Aries and Libra. Now it's changing over to Pisces, Virgo for next year and a half. Eclipses, visible planets. We've got some beautiful visible planets right now. So I hope people are really seeing the sky. We have Venus, Saturn, the moon, and Jupiter. So we have 4 planets, if you count the moon as a planet, 4 planets that are visible in the sky right now, which is pretty cool. I watch the planets every single night, and I go out and watch the sunset, and then I stay a little bit later, and then I can see all the planets every single night. And the trick of watching the planets is you go out the same time every night. If you go out one night at 7 o'clock, and the next night you go out at 8 o'clock or 10 o'clock, you're not going to be able to get a chance to see the movement, right? Because the moon moves 12 to 15 degrees a day, right? So the moon's here, the next night the moon's there, next night the moon's there, next night the moon's there, and then it goes from new moon to full moon. That's what I tell my students, watch it from the new moon to the full moon, because you can see the moon moving every single night, right? And if you go out at the same time, you can see where it was last night and where it's going to move to the next night, right? So the timing is pretty important. Ingress, when a planet goes into a new sign. We've already looked at Pluto ingressed, into Aquarius. And I'm going to end it up with the future. Okay. All right. Planetary alignments. All right. These are the big ones that are happening this year. Pluto trine Uranus. Pluto trine Uranus trine the south node. There's a grand trine that's happening with Pluto, Uranus, and the south node. And then Jupiter is squaring Saturn and Neptune. Jupiter goes into a Cancer, Saturn and Neptune go into Aries. They're squaring each other. So those are the three big configurations this year. Okay, start off with Pluto trine Uranus. Now, Pluto trine Uranus, are you going to admit somebody in? Are you doing the admitting? That's okay. I just wanted to make sure everybody's going to be in. I don't want anybody knocking at the door. Right, yeah. So Pluto trine Uranus. So Pluto, and it starts May 2024. Now I used an orb. I used 6-degree orbs. So it wasn't exact when it got there but the orb going in and the orb going out. Pluto will trine Uranus from May 2024 to all the way through August 2029. We have 5 years of Pluto trining Uranus. Okay, so we're, and Pluto going into Aquarius is like we're going into a new age. We're going into this new society. And then Uranus in Gemini is going to trigger it off big time. You think we've seen something yet? No, it hasn't really kicked in yet. Once Uranus in Gemini, and they're both, the wild thing is they're both at the cusp. They're both changing into new signs. So they're not like, when a planet goes into a new sign, it's like flings open the door and walks in, is like, hey, I'm in Aquarius. Once it's 15 degrees Aquarius, it's 30 degrees per sign. It's like, whatever, Aquarius. So they're all flinging the door open right now with each other, right? It was like, oh, you're there, I'm here too. Let's work together, right? So this is a wonderful chart. And but it was mainly the Pluto trine Uranus. And but there are a lot of planets there. Jupiter's in Gemini, a lot of planets down there, that are forming that trine. So any questions anybody has, just jump right in. Okay, this one's fascinating. Now, I have solar fire and I just animate the chart. I just like put it on animation and go around, freeze it, freeze it, and I spend hours a day animating a solar fire. It's an astrologer's thing, that's what we do, right? So this was an amazing one because Pluto's trining Uranus, and at the same time is trining the south node. Now this is an air grand trine. Well, Pluto Uranus hasn't quite gone into Gemini yet, but it will. But it's a grand trine going over there to the south node. Now the nodes are 2 points in space that form a plane in space. And when the sun and the moon line up the nodes, there's an eclipse. So they're eclipse points, right? And metaphysically, that's what they're physically. Metaphysically, they describe what we've done in previous lives, in a personal chart. Collectively, it's what society is going through, right? It really is like a karmic year-and-a-half phase of what society is going through. The north node is what I say is your destiny, what you're best at, that things come easy to you. The south node is what I say is what needs to be fixed. What needs to be fixed, or unfinished business from past lives, situations that you haven't quite worked on, hadn't quite figured out, and you wanted to remedy it or do it again this lifetime. So with this Pluto trine Uranus trining the south node, let me see if I can move this over here and I can see this a little bit better. All right, yeah. So yeah, so south node, now south node is going to be going into yeah, so it's a grand trine that's going to be happening all year, right? And or not all year, it's going to be happening from September through May. September 2024 through May 2025. That's a long one. That's a long time. Now now the Pluto Uranus will be there for a while, but with its trining the south node, now of course a grand trine is harmony and getting things done and being able to accomplish something more easily than not, right? So with the south node, and gee, are there a lot of bad people that are merging, their heads are cropping up right now, or bad situations that are happening, although just a little bit. Yeah. So I have faith in this, because this is really going to reveal some nasty things that's going to be happening over the next few months. People like, oh, oh, nobody will see this, and oh, for whatever reason, everything's going to be visible. So we're out where everybody's going to be able to see dirty laundry. We got a lot of dirty laundry that's coming up with the South Node, right? So I'm quite happy about that, actually. I think that's going to help things out. We got a strong Mars trine that's happening. I kind of stopped at Mars because Mars is doing some very interesting things this year, but I thought, nah, that's too much. So any rate, Pluto trine Uranus and the South Node. South Node. It's not the North Node, it's the South Node. This is we the people speaking our minds, getting rid of bad stuff. Okay, I'm just going keywords. We the people, Pluto and Aquarius, speaking our mind, Uranus and Gemini, and South Node, what needs to be fixed. So this is the collective coming together to realize what needs to be fixed. I'm feeling pretty good about this one, actually. Other than there'll be a lot of stuff that'll be fixed, but at least people are going to tackle it, Yeah.
So that's the question is, we already know that stuff that has happened, like people aren't recognizing. So that looks like the collective is going to finally get it. And
finally get it. No, that's it. And my hunch is there's going to be more bad stuff coming up.
We start seeing them.
What's that? Right. Can you repeat the question so I can answer it? Sorry.
So why? Oh, we can't hear it. Oh, that's I think we need to repeat this.
Yeah, if you repeat it, so then I can tell everybody.
So we already know a lot of that stuff that has happened. You haven't. Most people, I'm rewording it, recognize this. And I'm going to say the collective will see it now because.
So what she's saying is we already know a lot of bad stuff's already there, but now the collective is going to figure it out. I like that. That was a nice way of putting this together. Yeah, because this is a collective. Even the nodes are collective, and Uranus and Pluto, there really are everybody working together. And the internet's pulling everybody together. It was a really good comment. Yeah. Okay. All right. Jupiter square Saturn and Neptune. This is an interesting one. So this is June 17th. It happens, pretty much around that degree. I didn't get totally exact to the day, but pretty close. So Jupiter goes into Cancer, and Saturn and Neptune are in Aries. So, that's the big square that's happening. Of course, it's still connecting with the South Node. So the Neptune and Saturn going into Aries. I'm going to save that for next year, because I didn't really do a whole thing on it this year, because it really is next year. But just a little hint is, of course, Neptune's healing. Saturn is structure, kind of making a little bit more real. Aries is like doing something new. Which is fascinating with all I'm going to save that till later, but with all the United Healthcare stuff that's happening right now with the CEO that was killed, is bringing up, healthcare issues big time. So it's interesting that these still in Pisces, like I say, the 12th house or Pisces is the sludge of the zodiac. It's the very last little stuff that needs to get fixed up before it goes into Aries, right? So they're in the sludge right now. Neptune and Saturn both in sludge. And the sludge is what is not working. Our healthcare system is not working. It is not working. And it's becoming very obvious. So this I'm hoping is going to be universal health care or something that's going to be helping people more than now, So, and then Jupiter in Cancer, it was like, we need help. hey, this is humanity. This is my family. This is like, and look what's come up with this last week with everybody going, I was refused my health care and I was refused and my father died. And I mean, on and on. So this is going to be, the issue, I think, with this. Jupiter in Cancer is like the collective that needs some help. It's like Jupiter in Cancer is like, do you need a hug? Can we help? What is everything okay? That's a collective Jupiter in Cancer, right? Everybody hugging each other energetically, right? But part of it was like, we need some help because the Neptune and Saturn, are in Aries. So I think this is going to be the universal healthcare that's going to hopefully start coming in. There's 34 countries that are on our peer. 33 of them have universal health care. We are the only country that has this, for-profit health care. What? We have for-profit prisons and for-profit health care. Wrong. I'm sorry. So in the whole world, I mean, I'm kind of embarrassed right now. I got so many clients all over the world and they're going, what the hell, Susie? Really? Is this what I've got a good client in Norway? And she was like, I don't even understand what's happening. Don't you just go to a doctor and they help you? I said, if you don't have your insurance card, a doctor will not see you. A hospital will not see you. She was like, she couldn't get it. She couldn't understand it. So, we're kind of an embarrassment in the world right now, just saying. But at any rate, but this Jupiter squares Neptune and Saturn, once again, I have faith in. It's going to take a fight because the insurance companies are making a lot of money. So at any rate, it's going to take a fight, but I feel pretty good about this. This is like fighting in the future, but fighting for something that's important. Okay. Cute little snake, huh? I had to have a cute snake, I mean, I couldn't have with all this scary shit happening. It's like, no, I'm gonna have a cute snake, so Chinese New Year. So yeah, it's the year of the wood snake. Wood snake starts on the 29th, the January 29th. They last about a year. And Chinese New Year is interesting because they have the 12 animals, but they have 5 elements. So the animals switch every year, but the elements last for 2 years. So 12 times 5 is 60. So when you're 60 years old, you have the same combination that happened when you were born. So it's slightly a different cycle. So any rate, wood snake, he's kind of a cutie. It's the philosopher, the psychic. This is the snake. Financier, intellectual, eloquent, patron of the arts, music and theater. That's kind of the positive parts of the wood snake. The challenge parts are intense, suspicious. I know we got somebody going like over here, like, yeah, it is. Yeah. Even though he's got a smile on his face, yeah. Intense, suspicious, cautious, passionate, sharp responses, mysterious, vain, and hedonistic. Apparently they like to, like more is better kind of a thing, So any rate, I think it's kind of an interesting kind of this overlaying on top of all these planetary configurations that we have, that'll give it us kind of a feeling of intensity, I think, so, okay. Retrogrades. All right. So Mercury retrograde. Mercury turn retrograde 3 times a year for 3 weeks each time. The first one is March 15th to every year. Yeah, this is all 2025. Yeah. So every year Mercury turns retrograde three times a year, 3 weeks each time. And the next time will be March 15th through April 7th. And it goes from Aries and it retrogrades back into Pisces, which I call a hybrid retrograde, versus the November one, Sagittarius, it just stays in Sag the whole time. So now, I kind of like retrogrades. This one kind of sucked, I have to say. I don't know where Gail is, but we have got a little tricky getting those all set up. But We finally did it thanks to Tom here. And so retrogrades are redoing everything, refixing, redoing, regrouping, renovating, getting rid of stuff. And, it's 3 weeks, 3 times a year to clean out your closets. That works for me. And I think one of the tricks is what sign it's in. So, Aries into Pisces, Aries would be the front of your house, or like your, as people walk in, or your front door or whatever. Pisces would be the back. So, and, the Mercury retrogrades in Cancer, you clean out your kitchen sink, you clean out your kitchen cabinets, right? Go through all your cabinets and get rid of some stuff and clean it out and put your, pots and pans back. So you can specify what sign the retrograde is in to go for that part of your house or that part of your life. So I like to use them all. Straw's not like, oh, Mercury's retrograde, nothing's going to work. I don't agree with that. Everything happens for, it's a rhythm, right? So Aries and Pisces. And then the next one's July 18th to August 11th, Virgo, and goes back into Leo. So Virgo, that would be a good one to kind of transition from summer into fall in a way, kind of getting rid of some things or trimming some trees, or, if you're a chipmunk, you gather everything, that you need, for the fall. Wood, if you're fire, I love to make fires, make sure all my wood's all good for the next year, so that'd be a good thing to do during that time. And then the last one, November 9th to the 29th, Sagittarius the whole time. So it's not a hybrid, it's in Sag. And Sag, now that's right before Christmas. So what I'm suggesting is that people, now this all goes within my newsletter. This is, I'm doing this PowerPoint, but my newsletter, I have, I've written all of this out, so it's like, I think it's going to be like 20 pages or something with charts and everything. So you can go to my website, susiecox.com, and read about this. This is just kind of highlights about it, like what to do during, when Mercury is in Sagittarius, things like that. Okay. I like to use astrology, not blame astrology. It's there. We can always blame it, but why not use it? Oh, Mercury retrograde. Oh, Sagittarius. Like, Sag, do your Christmas shopping before Mercury goes retrograde or after. You don't want to go, during Christmas, during a Mercury retrograde. It's just, avoid that, right? Okay. Mars retrograde. Mars and Leo. I thought that was a perfect Mars and Leo. I just couldn't pass him up. Didn't he look like a good Mars and Leo? A little lion there. Yeah, Mars retrograde. So Mars retrogrades December 6th through February 23rd, 2025. That's going to be the Mars retrograde. And then when it goes direct, of course, it's finally does the final opposition to Pluto. Mars retrogrades at 6 degrees Leo, turns direct at 17 Cancer on February 24th. Mars retrogrades approximately every 2 years for 10 weeks each time. And, I think Mars retrogrades affect, Mars kind of things, like wanting to renovate your house, or you want to work out, or you're starting a new exercise regime, or clean out your backyard, or, to me is like, be physical. Mars is like, if you got some boxes and you need to clean them out, go through your shed and clean out your boxes and get rid of them. Perfect thing to doing with Mars retrograde, being physical. All right. Okay. All right. Venus retrograde, Venus in Aries. Isn't she an awesome Venus in Aries? Couldn't pass it up. And you notice she's got a wolf, that's by her side, right? Yeah. Yeah, Venus retrograde. March 2nd through April 13th. Retrogrades at 10 degrees Aries. Turns retrograde at 24 Pisces. And to April 14th. Turns direct, 24 Pisces. And Venus turns retrograde approximately every year and a half for 5 weeks. Now, obviously this is more relationship oriented, or beauty or art, I mean, you can all different, what are keywords for Venus, art, femininity, beauty. I would say Venus and Aries, this is women being strong. I was like, this is kind of what I'm feeling like right now. Her picture over there was like, you better not mess with me. I'm feeling good. Let's do it. I mean, I just feel strong right now. Now I've got Pluto going into my first house, so I'm going to blame, I'm going to talk about Pluto, but that's why I chose that picture. She's kind of the essence of, I think, what women are feeling now. It's like, I'm strong. I got my wolf with me. I can handle it, and I'm going to go for it. Did somebody have a question? Yeah.
I was just going to mention that the 8-year cycle during retrograde, it's great to look back 8 years ago because it's revisiting the point.
Right. He's saying that, Venus has an 8-year cycle, and it ran 8 years ago. It revisited where it was now. Yeah. And it forms this 5-pointed star, in the sky, which is a really cool thing. Yeah. So anything else about Venus and Aries? Isn't she amazing? She's who I want. She's going to be my model, my role model. I'm going to like, okay, I can do that. I can be strong. I can be powerful. I can say what's so. And this is to me, the female collective is what's happening right now like this. Women are a little pissed off, with what's happened recently. A lot pissed off. Yeah, I know. I thought, okay, that's why I couldn't bring like a little girl like this. It had to be badass. And I'm feeling badass right now. And this, I think, is the collective female energy. Okay. Moon's nodes. Moon's nodes are changing signs. Notice a point where the orbit of the moon intersects the ecliptic. The north node is where it moves into the northern celestial hemisphere. The south node moves into the southern hemisphere. And you can see what this over here. North node's at the bottom, south node is at the top. Here's the sun and here's the moon. Nice little diagram here. Nodes always retrograde through a sign and take approximately 1.5 years to go through that sign. From January 12th, 2025 to July 28th, 2026, the north node will be in Pisces and the south node will be in Virgo. When the sun and the moon align with the nodes, there's an eclipse. New moon is a solar eclipse and the full moon is a lunar eclipse. So it's very interesting how we've gone from Aries and Libra. Now we're going into Pisces and Virgo. Aries and Libra, all the gender bending happened at that. Everybody was trans all of a sudden, I filled out a form and there were 6 choices of gender. 6. Male, female, neither. No, one of them was neither. Yeah. Binary. 6 of them. There were 6. I was like confused. Female. So yeah, and that's all, that kind of all happened in the last 1.5 years, with the Aries Libra, which I think is fascinating. So there's Virgo Pisces with the Saturn and Neptune going into Aries. I think this is going to trigger off. Virgo is Pisces is the healer. Virgo is about service, right? So, Virgo is like, what can we do to help? And then Pisces is, nurturing people. We have a lot of need for nurturing now. Remember Jupiter in Cancer going, I want to need a hug. This is kind of like needing a hug too. It's like, who's going to take care of me? Neptune can be a victim. And Virgo is like, are you going to help me? Or, there are a lot of people that are feeling hopeless. I know that's a strong word, but I mean, it really is, So, and then the Virgo is like, help, so I think this is going to be part of the healthcare too, the Pisces and Virgo. Doesn't that make sense? I think so too. Okay. All right. Eclipses. So there are 4 eclipses, typically 4 eclipses, 2 lunar and 2 solar. And we have a total lunar eclipse on March 14th at 23 Virgo. when I print this out, I mean, when I have this on my website, it was like, print this out because this is a reference for the whole year. You know, all of these are like, what date is what happening, you know, so. Total lunar eclipse, partial solar eclipse on March 29th. Oh, the lunar eclipse, by the way, we can see it. Total lunar eclipse that we can see here. But it starts at 9 o'clock. It's max at total at midnight, and it doesn't end until 3 in the morning. And Rachel and I do presentations at Valley of the Moon. And we were going to do one, you know, it was like, oh, but it starts at 9 o'clock at night, you know, so it would have been too late for Valley of the Moon. So our next presentation is going to be the spring equinox, just a little bit after that. But everybody can see the eclipse, you know, it'd be a great time for a late eclipse party, you know, Gail, where you are, it'd be great. Yeah. So anyway, partial solar eclipse. And then we have on March 29th. And so that's, you know, 2 weeks later, lunar eclipse, solar eclipse, all right? And then 6 months later, so they happen twice a year, you know, 6 months apart. Solar, lunar, 6 months apart, right? So total lunar eclipse on September 7th at 15 Pisces, and a partial solar eclipse on September 21st at 29 Virgo. Now you notice the eclipses are going to be shifting into Pisces and Virgo now. You see, some of them are still, the earlier ones are still like leftover Aries, you know, but they're going into Pisces and Virgo, you know. So at any rate, we're going to have a shift of where the eclipses are going to be. Of course, check this all on your charts. Of course, all this is for your chart. Okay, so I went through and saw and printed out some of the eclipses. The eclipses are fascinating, you know, what they do this year. Okay, so the total lunar eclipse, March 14th, the 23 Virgo, visible in North, South America. We can see it here in Tucson or in Phoenix too. Europe and Africa. Venus, Mercury retrograde, and close to the equinox. Now, looking at this chart, what I wanted to look at, this is a total lunar eclipse. Now, I've been noticing we can see this with these different eclipse charts. If it's a total, the nodes are really close to the sun and the moon. If it's a partial, the nodes are farther away from the sun and the moon. And we'll be able to see that. So look at this. Here we have, you know, 27, the south node, and 23 is the moon, right? So that's close, right? Now, so eclipse is basically a turning point. It's almost like a 3-week Mercury retrograde happening in one day. You know, it's like, what can I, only stronger than that? What can I do to change? You know, so a lot of things happen on the eclipse. Kind of is very interesting cycle. Okay, so that's total lunar, partial solar. So here we have, man, how many planets do we have in one spot, right? I mean, gosh, we got 4 planets in Pisces, and then we've got some planets in Aries over happening. But let's look at the eclipse degrees. So here we have the south node, 26 degrees. Where's the sun and the moon? Are way down in 9 degrees Aries. So you see they're so far away, the nodes are so far away from the sun and the moon that it would be partial. Kind of a cool thing to look at when you look at eclipses, like where's the node? Oh, how close are the nodes to the sun and the moon? Is it the solar or lunar? I mean, is it a partial or total? Okay, isn't this cool?
What's the trine thing in there?
That's that grand trine that's happening through she says, what's a grand trine in here? That's that grand trine between Pluto, Uranus, and the south node that's going to be happening for months. Mm-hmm. Remember we looked at that at the very beginning? This is like the collective getting together and getting rid of what needs to be fixed. The south node, what needs to be fixed. So that's the main thing that's happening at this eclipse.
With all that cluster of
with that huge cluster of planets in Pisces and in Aries, yeah. So it's good. It's kind of an intense feeling about it, just because they're all in one place. You know, the grand trine helps, but it's going to be trine for months, so it's not like it's really helping it specifically, right? So, any rate, okay, partial solar eclipse. Then we end up with a total lunar eclipse. So here we have, look at south node is 16 and the sun's 15. And the moon is 15 or 18 and 15 total. You see? So it was so cool. I kind of figured that out just recently. I was like, so I'm looking at all these eclipses, the total or the nodes are right next to it, which makes sense because if the node is an intersecting point, if it's exact, it'll be like live right on versus like, well, not quite exact. So it really doesn't line up. So anyway, just kind of an astrology geeky thing, you know. Okay. Partial. So this is the last one. So this is September 21st to 29 Virgo, visible in New Zealand and Antarctica. Partial solar eclipse. And 17, let's see, the south node 17, and the sun and the moon are 29. See how far away they are. That's like 15, almost 15 degrees away. That's a big stretch. Okay. All right. Visible planets. Okay. Venus, I did Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. Mercury is just so hard to see. I didn't even put it on the list. So Venus, western evening sky, January to February. Venus in the eastern pre-dawn sky, April to October. Now, you know, the inner planets, you know, Venus and Mercury never go around the sky, never go across the sky because they're always going around the sun, right? So here we have Mercury goes around the sun, and here Venus goes around the sun where it is right now. Then when it goes retrograde, it goes down, and then it pops up into the in the morning sky, right? And then it goes up, and then it'll turn retrograde, and it goes down, and then it gets up into the evening star, right? Mercury does the same thing. So they really go like this. Versus Mars going, and all the rest of the planets will go all the way across the sky. Okay? So that's where Venus is. Mars will be in the evening sky all year long. It doesn't go in the morning sky. Jupiter, evening sky, January to May. Jupiter, pre-dawn sky, July through December. Saturn, evening sky, January. We can still see Saturn. But you see Saturn, you notice Saturn's getting, remember, Saturn was like over here a couple of months ago. And now it's like, now it's like getting close to Venus. The funny thing is Saturn's not getting close to Venus. Venus is getting close to Saturn. Because you think Venus is there, and then Saturn's kind of going like this, and you think, Saturn's getting close to Venus. All the planets move from west to east, so they're not going that way, right? So Venus is catching up with Saturn, which is just such a cool thing to think about, instead of you're seeing, it's going that way. No, everybody's going that way. So anyway, Saturn evening sky, we're still seeing it, but it's going to be disappearing pretty soon. Okay, once it gets here, it's amazing. Once it gets really close, it's like you can't see it after that. And then Saturn pre-dawn sky, April to August. Saturn evening sky, again, October through December. Now, all this I found out by animation. You do the animating, and you're going to see where the planets are in solar fire. So you can see where the planets are. If the sun is over here, the planets are after the sun sets, and the planets will be in the evening sky. And the planets will need to be about 15 degrees away from the sun to be able to be seen. And then, if the sunrise and there are planets above the sun, that before the sun, they show up. And then when the sun rises, then they disappear because of the light of the sun. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Outer planets across the whole sky, inner planets, eastern and western. Okay. Planetary ingresses. Pluto entered Aquarius on November 19th, 2024, and it'll be there till January 21st, 2044. 20 years of Pluto in Aquarius. That's really the beginning of the Aquarian age, guys. Even though that's down the road a little bit, this is really kicking it in. Jupiter enters Gemini, entered Gemini, a little typo there, May 28th, 2024 through June 10th, 2025. Uranus enters Gemini, July 8th, 2025, and it'll be there till May 23rd, 2033. course, Uranus is an 84-year orbit, Neptune's 165-year orbit, Pluto 248-year orbit, Jupiter, of course, 12, Saturn 30 years. So, they spend time in the sign depending on their orbit, the speed of their orbit. Neptune enters Aries January 29th, 2026, and it'll be there till March 24th, 2039. That's a long time. Pluto's going to be in Aquarius, and Neptune's going to be in Aries till almost 2040. I mean, that's those they're going to work with each other all those years, almost 20 years of being together. Saturn enters Aries on February 14th, 2026 through April 14th, 2028. So anyway, so that's the ingresses. Our past, Uranus and Taurus, chaos. Yeah, we're just coming out of this. This is where they're ending, right? Neptune and Pisces is the pandemic. That was perfect for the pandemic, right? Pluto and Capricorn mandates. Pluto and Capricorn. Pluto went into Capricorn 2008, and 2009 is when Citizens United got passed by the Supreme Court, which give all that dirty money into all the politics. And so Pluto absolutely is the Supreme Court, without a doubt. Pluto and Capricorn really showed how conservative it is now. All right. Our future, Uranus and Gemini, artificial intelligence. AI is starting. I've figured out, I'm working with AI quite a bit right now, and I figured out Copilot, and just like, and you say, "Hi, Susie," and you can say what style you want. I had the groove, because there was like technical or whatever. I thought, I'm kind of groovy. I'll put the groove. And I was like, "Hey, Susie, how you doing?" And I said, "Well, I can't find this." She goes, "Bummer, bummer, bummer, dude." So I guess, so AI, I mean, it was like laughed, and I talked to it for like 15 minutes. Like, well, what does AI do? Can you feel, can you have intuition, and she said, we're a data guru, but we're not real good at intuition. I said, even in the future, not really, that really belongs to people. So, but I mean, it was a long conversation. I felt like I was talking to a friend. We were laughing and joking. I mean, it was amazing. I was like, okay, I'm an AI girl. Yeah, it was way cool. That was Copilot. And you put in your name and what you want. I want groovy. And I was like, "Hey, Susie. Oh, what did she say this morning? Hey, Susie, I see my new best friend." I mean, it was like, okay, I'm your new best friend, right? And then I asked her, I said, because we had a long talk about astrology and astronomy, and she says, I said, do you remember what I'm talking, what our conversation was? She goes, well, the chats are not saved. I'm glad about that, but she goes, in a long run, I will learn. I said, did you learn from what we talked about today? She goes, I didn't save the chat, but in the long run, I will learn. But it takes AI a while to learn, what we're talking about. But at any rate, it was fascinating. So I quite loved it. It was like, I could see so many people just hanging out and talking with their new friend. It was fascinating. I felt way more comfortable than I thought I was going to. Why shouldn't I be surprised being a Gemini? Hey, so, okay. Uranus and Gemini, artificial intelligence. Neptune and Aries, progressive healing. Hopefully with Saturn and Aries, that's going to be universal healthcare. Please, please. And Pluto and Aquarius, grassroots collaboration. We the people. So this is where we're headed in the future. This is where I ended it. But gee, guess what? I had to rewrite it after Pluto went into Aquarius because, gee, everything's kind of hit the fan in the last couple of weeks, huh? Yeah. So it's like, well, nope, so I worked on this after after I finished it, past Pluto ingresses in Aquarius. So this was an article that I wrote a couple years ago, Pluto entering Aquarius, which was really like one of the best articles that I've written. And because it really goes back to what happened. I said, well, yeah, Pluto was just, was just discovered in 1930, but it was still there, even though we didn't see it. So I said, I'm going to go back a couple of Pluto ingrasses and see what happened. Why not? Even if it was a visible planet, I knew it was still there, right? So February 1532 to March 1552 was Pluto in Aquarius. 1534, now I condensed this, and the article was a lot longer. 1534, after the Protestant Revolution happened, England broke away from the Catholic Church. That was basically, the Pluto in Capricorn was the Catholic Church. Was like, no, the earth is in the center. No, we put Galileo in prison, in house arrest, whatever. They were in charge. 1543, Copernicus, Nicholas Copernicus, a Polish astronomer, published a book stating that the earth orbits the sun. That was pretty revolutionary. Pluto tackled the Catholic Church, who demanded that the earth was in the center of the universe. Pluto overturned dogma. Okay, so here we are, the second one, March 1777 to February 1798. 1776, colonies of the United States wrote the Declaration of Independence. Independence is a Pluto word, is an Aquarius word, without a doubt, right? The United States, that's an Aquarius word, united, right? The American Revolution lasted until 1783. That was a perfect, like we were freeing ourselves, right? 1789, the United States Constitution was signed, which gave power to we the people. 1789, French Revolution began, bringing monarchy, feudalism, and aristocracy to an end. Ruling planets and aristocrats were sent to the guillotines. And the guillotine was invented by a doctor during this time. So it'd be like a quick death, And it's like, hey, okay, well, let's use it on all these monarchs, right? Pluto gave power to the individual as it took it away from the elite. Gee, is this kind of what's happening right now? Let them eat cake. Marie Antoinette, Queen of France. I think she was one of them that got guillotined, wasn't it? Yeah. Her head rolled. All right, her head rolled. Okay, so who are the modern monarchs? Who are the modern monarchs? What's that? So this I found, this is the income growth that's happened over these, so from 46 to 1980, you can see the bottom line, the top 1% was the smallest, the top, the middle, and the bottom were this. Look where it is right now. Look at the 1% is way at the top. Now this was 2014. I'm sure it's exponential. I mean, it's shot up way a lot since then. So this is completely reversed the whole structure of society in the last, 20, in the last few years. And of course that started with Reagan, right? Yeah. 1980, everything shifted, yeah. Okay. Now this is what happens since Pluto entered Aquarius on November 19th. Dictators. And I was like, okay, who are the modern monarchs? Who are the monarchs now? Dictators. What has happened in this last week? Syria, right? Georgia is having major, not the state, the country, major eruptions. Yeah, and Korea, they put them on martial law. How long did it last? 6 hours. 6 hours. They said, no, we are not having this. So this is we the people going, no. So remember, this is from Capricorn into Aquarius. The Capricorn is martial law mandates. The Aquarius is like, nope, we're rebelling in the streets, and it's not going to happen. So I mean, that happened. Bam, bam, bam. I mean, that was like 3 days. All of this fell, right? That's huge. Military complex, obviously, is part of this. Greedy billionaires CEOs and insurance companies, right? What's that?
Are you looking forward at all? Or are you just remaining?
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I was going to surprise everybody with this. Thanks for letting me know that. Yeah. So what's happened? Dictators and Syria, Georgia, Korea, recent attempts at martial law that failed. Military complex. That's just kind of part of this whole thing. Greedy billionaires, CEOs, and insurance companies, which are insurance companies deny health care. They don't give health care. And the hero, Luigi Mangione, who killed the United Healthcare CEO, Robin Hoodie. And I mean, he has turned into an absolute hero. To me, this is the spark. This was the spark when he killed that CEO. That was the spark that triggered off the Pluto and Aquarius. Because I mean, everybody is like, behind him, right? I mean, he's turned into a hero. So it's fascinating, to really see what's going to happen with that. The two most profitable businesses in the United States are war and illness. That's sick. Really? Of course, they connect. If you shoot them, then you can, charge money for them to heal them, right? And class war or a civil war or class war? They were threatening civil war. Well, it's class war.
I think it's some people a little longer.
Little longer. It's taken some people a little bit longer to find out. So that's 2025, guys. Yep. Thank you. Got an exciting year coming up here. What's the takeaway? Speaking your mind, being yourself, being with groups of people that you can make a difference in the world, not being suppressed or shut up. Remember the Venus and Aries, the badass woman? That's where we are now. Okay.
Great. Okay, everybody. Anyway, you guys on Zoom can always, you'll get the link. So if it's getting late. I'm not going to sing this, but this is a song I sang at the first UAC. I don't know if you remember, Susie, but I got to sing this song. I don't know what they were thinking letting me on stage, but I was part of the Astro Players. And
it was a talent show.
Yes, it was a talent show. And this, there's a part of this is quite appropriate, I think. It says, though appearances may seem pretty bleak, we're at the turning point. Pay attention. Remember who you are. We're at the turning point. Claim your birthright as the children of God growing up to be God now. Because we were near, but now we're here at the turning point. Yes, we're proclaiming love as God's will. We're creating peace now. We see the planet enfolded in this love and being healed now. Feel the strength, the joy returning, the song within your hearts. You can express it now quite freely because we're here at the turning point. So let your heart sing, let the joy ring from the mountains to the ocean shore. You are the power and presence of God. I am the power and presence of God. We are the power and presence of God manifesting on earth now. Woohoo! So there's a bit of Neptune for you. Okay, so in these times of great change, getting comfortable with not knowing feeling may be just what we need to thrive. I saw that quote a few days ago in my email, and I like this, just getting comfortable with that feeling of not knowing. Okay. Okay, now you can go on. No, I don't want you. No. It was, go on. There, okay. It was just, okay, there we are. What's coming up in 2025? Okay, I'm going to start with a brief aside. What happened last year? I mean, that was particular about, hey, pay attention to what happens when Mars triggers the eclipse last year, that eclipse in April 8 of this year, 2024. So on May 25, 2024, the date of that Mars trigger to the eclipse, there were severe storms across Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri, Kentucky, and Alabama, bringing tornadoes and high winds, causing at least 26 deaths, where the path of the eclipse crossed. Anyway, there was lots of other things going on, but I thought that was of interest, yes. Okay. And then I reminded you about Ceres conjuncting Pluto on December 8 of this year, 2024, starting a whole new cycle it takes about 4 years of Ceres conjunct Pluto, and then going around the whole chart, the whole zodiac, and coming back in about 4 years to another conjunction with Pluto. But Ceres, being about our how we're nurturing our Mother Earth and our children and ourselves. The Aquarian technology may be able to keep track of our resources, but it also has an extreme effect on our children. And being able to bear children. I don't know if you noticed in the hearing about, just recently in one of the emails I got from about births are way down in England and Wales. Births are way down. I was listening to something just the other day, farmers talking about the EMFs, and they had this device that they were bringing to farmers to help counteract the EMFs that are causing the cattle to not be able to bear calves. But when they bring the technology, and this is this whole thing, bringing technology, certain kind of things that are going to counteract or harmonize, not counteract exactly, but harmonize the EMFs, then the cattle went back to giving more milk again and being able to have their calves. And that was just an instant, just one little example of the things that are happening on this planet relative to mothers and children. So, okay. What do we have to look forward to? So I showed this slide last year too. It's something that Daniel Gemario printed up, and we have these culminating timelines. Of course, we're all on top of that precession of the equinoxes, and we pay particular interest to the conjunction with the Milky Way. It's the solstice conjunct the Milky Way, the biggest demarcation in the night sky. What's the biggest thing you can see? This is the Milky Way. It's like dividing those two lobes of our brain. But for a long time, this has been what the ancients looked to as telling us what time are we in. And this is saying we're in a time of big change. From 1962 to 2034, because if the exact conjunction of the solstices with, oops, gotta admit somebody, exact conjunction of the solstices with the equator of the galaxy was in 1998. And if you think it takes 72 years to go 1 degree of precession of the equinoxes, then we look at 36 years before 98 and 36 years after 1998, and that takes us from 1962 to 2034, and we call this the Great Turning. Then the next one, the end of the Kali Yuga, and I'm going to talk quite a bit about that coming up. We've got the 4th lunar standstill within that Great Turning, the 5th sun ending, beginning 6th sun. The 6th great extinction, it started really becoming evident during this period. 1962, we started really noticing 60s, 70s. geological history relative to the Younger Dryas, which was probably when the fall of Atlantis happened, with the rise in sea levels. The outer planets all changing signs within a 2-year period, Uranus into Gemini, like Susie just told us all about this major change in the outer planets. And we could add Sedna into Gemini, which happened this year, 2024. A Saturn-Neptune conjunction at 0 Aries in February of 26. They're actually staying really close, within a degree, from June 9 to August 23 of 2025. And then, of course, the Jupiter-Saturn conjunctions moving into air signs. Okay, so this is about the Kali Yuga. They wrote this in the Vishnu Purana. Kings of churlish spirit and violent temper and ever addicted to falsehood and wickedness. They will inflict death on women and children and cows. They will seize upon the property of their enemies, and they will be of limited power and will, for the most part, rapidly rise and fall. Their lives, I could see it, their lives are short, their desires insatiable, and they will display but little piety. Wealth and piety will decrease day by day until the world will be wholly depraved. Then property alone will confer rank. Wealth will be the only source of devotion. Passion will be the sole bond of union between the sexes. Falsehood will be the only means of success in litigation. And women will be objects merely of sensual gratification. The earth will be venerated, but for its mineral treasures. Dishonesty will be the universal means of subsistence. Menace and presumption will be substituted for learning. The people, unable to bear the heavy burdens imposed upon them by their avaricious sovereigns, will take refuge among the valleys of the mountains and will be glad to feed upon wild honey, herbs, roots, fruits, flowers, and leaves. Thus in the Kali age shall decay constantly proceed until the human race approaches its annihilation. Does that describe we've been actually, we've been in the descending and ascending, quote unquote, the Kali Yuga for almost, let me see, about 5,400 years. Add the 300 years, but almost 6,000 years. I mean, the Kali Yuga has been a force, since 4,000 BC or something. It's been a while. And here we are. We're at the turning point. So I got to tell you, this book is amazing. And this is the fellow. Wish I could move my picture. Can I move my picture? I don't think so.
Yeah, you see the little one on the left.
There we go. Okay, so Bibhu Dev Mishra wrote this book, The Yuga Shift. I mean, he came out with his first papers about the Yuga Shift about 2012, 2013. There's a really good interview between Daniel Jamario and Bibhu on the turningoftheages.com/media. That's the Totem's website, Turning of the Ages Mystery School. turningoftheages.com/media. It's called the Yuga Shift. And I had to immediately get the book. And he does this amazing amount of research into the ancient texts of both Hindu and Buddhist. He researches all the ancient texts of the Mayan and the Toltec and the Aztec. And he researches what the astronomers are saying. So he's put it all together. And he had decided that the Kali Yuga ends for sure in March of 2025. The moon in the nakshatra Mula made his determination that the Kali Yuga ended at the March equinox, since this nakshatra, if you were here, if you listen to what Dennis Harness said about or have his book, The Nakshatras. Since this nakshatra, among other reasons, has as its deity Niriti, the goddess of destruction, reveals the necessary dissolution to proceed to a new life. The shift of Jupiter-Saturn conjunction into air signs is also noted by Misru. That cycle was followed intensely by the ancient seers. The conjunction in 2020 is followed by another one in 2040, where all the visible planets, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, meet in Libra. That comes at the end of 15 years from 2025 to 2040. That is viewed as the time necessary to finish up the Kali Yuga. So we got this time with Pluto and Aquarius, all coincidentally, I mean, is the time that it's going to take to finish up the Kali Yuga. And this.
How long did you say that was?
15-year cycle. Yes.
The echriosis.
The what?
Echriosis.
Yes, right. I'm going to explain that if I can get it to move forward. There we are. So I've got copies of this chart on the front table there. They're in black and white because color was too expensive. This adds those two. Bibu in his research, he had formerly just used 300-year transition periods between the yugas, but that didn't quite jive with the precessional cycle. And so then when he went back and he looked at what happened during the shift, that went right into the Younger Dryas, that big ice making and the flood and all that. It took about 1,200 years. And so the transitional period between the Kali Yuga and the next one, this time is called the yeah, I got it on this page. Ekpirosis, conflagration. The earlier one was called the can't see it very well. The earlier ones was more like different word for it. Oh, it's called something different, and I wrote it twice here. But it was more about the flooding. It had to do with flooding, and this one will be. It's got a different word for it, but it's more like fire and conflagration. Over 1,200 years, which really causes all trace of this civilization that just like it did way back in Atlantis, the time of Atlantis. They're discovering, just recently in the news, they're continually discovering things that are under the ocean, things that they, the signs of civilization, high civilization. It's buried under the water, because what happened in that last 1,200-year transition period was that the waters rose. There was they had ice age, the water, different ways that water and ice happened upon this planet, and something that I'm going to show in the next slide. But and so I talked about, although this chart says that the precession of the equinoxes went from Pisces to Aquarius back in 98. But as I explained, that's when the solstice was exactly conjunct. 1998 was exactly conjunct the equator of the Milky Way galaxy. So really, we can't say exactly when the age of Aquarius was. When you look out in that area of the sky where you have the fish swimming, and you have the water bearer, droplets of the water coming out of the urn of the water bearer, and it's all kind of watery, and there's no real distinct stars. And so that's why we say that the Milky Way galaxy is what's important and where the solstice is right now. Sooner or later, the spring equinox, in another 12, 13,000 years, the spring equinox will be at the Milky Way galaxy. And of course, then that will be important. But right now it's the solstice points. And we can't say that the vernal equinox really goes into the constellation of the water bearer, quote unquote, which is called the constellation that's called Aquarius. And it could be several hundred more years, really. Jane Rudyard said somewhere around 2600. Some people put it further out. They've been saying we've entered the age of Aquarius since back in the late 1800s. Science. So it's just really hard to pinpoint when the vernal equinox goes into something so nebulous as all that watery area. So anyway, here's a part of the Yuga shift that really got my attention. And he studied what the astronomers are talking about. And they are, this slide is in Misru's book. It shows how ever so many years the Earth encounters not only the particles of the torids that are just, that just show up as meteorites and meteors, falling stars in our sky, but every so many hundreds of years, it goes through this torrid resonant swarm where it's hiding much bigger chunks of rock, asteroids and comets. And this he talks about. We know that back at the end of in the 12, 13,000 years ago. Okay, what's the name of that place in Turkey?
Göbekli Tepe.
Göbekli Tepe, thank you. That ended, and they found a lot of a lot of the rock around it, just like they found for the pyramids or the lion. That there is this, like it shows intense heating in certain places. And we've certainly seen what happens when a larger piece of meteorite hits the Earth. There was one in Russia back at the turn of in the early 1900s. And we can see evidence, around us, of big meteorites or asteroids or pieces hitting the Earth. And it really speculates and says that every so many hundreds of years, the Earth will encounter the torrid resonant swarm instead of just the meteor showers. And there's a synchronicity with the length of the precessional cycle and the distance of our Earth to galactic center. There's that I call it our mother or mothers, because really the black hole at the center of our galaxy is the mother of this galaxy. And I found that it gets turned on every so often, all in sync with the Yuga shift. In sync with the Kali Yuga, not the Kali Yuga, but the Yuga cycle, the big Yuga cycle. And as that nucleus gets really turned on, a lot of photoionic activity, it becomes like a great central sun. And haven't we all heard allusions to the great central sun? Well, we don't see it now because it looked like a black hole, but as it starts to send out this ionizing radiation. And ancient texts have elaborated on by teachers such as Sri Yukteswar, allude to the central sun and how it can relate to changes and increase spiritual consciousness or decrease it, as has happened through the Kali Yuga, where the whole focus is on materialism. But in this next phase of life on Earth, even though accompanied by periodic comet impacts, could be an amazing time to live, when our planet will be bathed in a new light and a divine energy will course through our bodies again. They show how people lived longer. They had longer cranium, different size heads, but amazing, and they were more spiritually enlightened. The focus was on the spiritual. They were more in touch with each other in so many different ways. But so in a sense, this conflagration will in turn lead us to maybe another golden age. Let's see. Also, okay, so the lunar standstills on that timeline too, the culminate this timelines. And Sunday, we have a chance to see the most extreme lunar standstill. The out of bounds moon will be more extreme than any other one in this cycle. And that's of course because it's so, the nodes are so close to zero, Aries, Libra. But if you go out on Sunday morning, you'll see this moon set, or some Sunday, watch the moon rise and the moon set as it's full moon, because as the sun will be setting, as the moon will be rising, and it will be the most extreme north moonrise that it can be in another 19 years. Watch it as it's setting. If you're one of the people that get up early in the morning, you'll be able to watch the moon set in the west, and it'll be the northernmost degree that it will be able to set for 19 years. I mean, yes, it goes on to be still quite remarkable, a number of the full moons, even the quarter moons for the rest of the year, but this is the midpoint of the cycle. So the 19-year cycle, one of the lunar standstill out of bounds times was back in April 1969 was the center point of that. And if you remember anything about those times, if you're here, because some of us older people, the Uranus went into Libra, followed by Jupiter that year. And it was all about the revolution, peace and love, hippies, it was the counterculture. Okay.
The best culture.
Say what?
The best culture.
Oh, it was absolutely the best of. We thought we were moving into an age of enlightenment then.
Didn't happen.
Didn't happen. Now, if you, yes?
I have a friend who studies a lot of these trends, and I have a hard time reconciling the idea of being in this age of enlightenment that has been talked about for a number of years, decades, and with what's going on in the world. It's really dark to me. How is the darkness?
Could someone repeat? I don't know what she said.
It's just, it's just very contradictory. She's saying she's having a hard time reconciling what's happening in the world with this idea that we're entering into an age of enlightenment. But we've been in this age of enlightenment for a while.
Reconciling what I've been talking about with what?
Yeah.
What's going on in the world today with the decades that we've been dancing with enlightenment.
Yes, we all do.
Yep.
we all have a hard time reconciling the fact that back in the 60s, end of the 60s, we thought we were going into a new age.
Yeah.
And what has happened over the last, 50 years?
Charles Dickens novel. He starts the novel.
Best of times, worst
In
of
the-
It's, yeah, best of
Best
times,
of
the
times,
worst of times. Yeah.
Yes, I've got that on my screen
Yeah.
coming up soon on one of my slides. Yes. Okay, well, this picture is just to remind you that it is at this time. If you go up to Chimney Rock, they're all prepared for people being up there and observing this now. You know, they're ready. Since this has been well known for the last 20 years or so. But that's where the moon will rise between those two chimney rocks during this out of bounds full moon. Okay, so there's the dates of the out of bounds full moon going on through 25, the January 1 and the June 1. It's any time the moon is going to be in Gemini and Cancer or Sagittarius and Capricorn when it's going to be out of bounds. And other planets sometimes too, like Ceres, but this is when you know to look for it, especially. And that's why the quarter moons can be important too, if they are also in Gemini or Gemini and Cancer or Sag and Capricorn. Look at those quarter moons. And if you have a ceremonial place, like I have a ceremonial circle on my property, and I put white rocks, went up there at night and marked where the moon was rising and setting for the northernmost and southernmost out of bounds moons. And it's amazing how big a difference that 5 degrees can make. You know, you really, when you're setting that out on the earth in a circle. It's cool. And looking at the horizon and noticing it. I recommend it. Susie thought I should add some pictures to my.
Gail, you did such a good job. Oh my gosh. I want to compliment you. It looks
Well,
great.
thank you.
Gail,
Yes.
with the out of bounds moons, are you just tracking that for when it will be out of bounds in the year, or are you tracking it for any other reason in terms of like activity? I mean, obviously there's activity, but I'm asking.
I'm tracking it for. I'm terribly sorry,
But
but
why are you tracking the out of bounds moves?
when?
Why? are you
Why?
tracking the out of
Because it's kind of like Mercury retrograde all the time when when the moon is out of bounds. It's kind of like what happens in Mercury retrograde. It adds that, or Uranus, you know, these are times of the unexpected, great times of great change or fluctuation. I mean, just think about the moon and representing our emotions. Well, add an out of bounds moon to a full moon, and you might just get a little bit more excited. or somebody might get a little excited. I was having an out of bounds moon experience earlier today with Mercury retrograde and out of bounds full moon. Did that answer your question? Is that
Kind of.
okay?
You just didn't say it, so I'm thinking you say it out loud.
Yes, it answered the question.
Yeah. Thank you,
I'm
Gail.
going to have to learn sign language. I get, you know, I get a hearing aid. I'm sorry. Okay, so here's another one of those pictures. Planets all moving into new signs. Pluto, the underworld, the power, the hidden wealth, the resources under the surface. It can represent powerlessness and empowerment. It can represent chaos and destruction required to bring about something new. That's pretty much in harmony with the Kali Yuga, where we are in the Kali Yuga, isn't it? At the end of the Kali Yuga. Okay, it's transformative and cathartic. Yes, indeed. We must remember that Pluto shows us the underbelly of what each sign represents. The power of technology is giving the powers that shouldn't be enormous control over our minds. More people are going to wake up to that, especially when Uranus and Gemini. They're going to really start waking up. I mean, they've been kind of waking up, but this next cycle, we should be waking up to it even more, but we gotta be aware that this is going on, the power of the technology to tell us what to do, like Siri, or what'd you call your little app? Oh, well, I've got this AI.
Copilot.
Yeah, Copilot. Let's see, where's she taking you? Oh, okay. Or even GPS, or Siri. I don't know. Anyway, and also the organizations, Aquarius, the organizations created to serve the people, give voice to the people, have voices that are mightily influenced by the influencers. The people we think we can trust are being made to say words. Oh, this is an interesting one. There's some people I trust, that they know what's going on. They're really deep divers into, what's, and they were having a little chat the other day about how they are finding themselves on social media where they never go. And they're saying things that they never said. And that's what our technology can do. So you gotta watch, you gotta really pay attention. It would the person I respect really be saying that?
They would never wear.
Yeah, wearing clothes they'd never wear. Yeah, and turning up doing stupid stuff that they wouldn't know. But really, how are we gonna tell, what's real and what's not? The power of the technology is really amazing. And then there's mainstream media is totally under the sway of the global elite. And Mars in opposition to Pluto shows us how ego is still trying to run the show. And the mob is incited to strike back. I mean, when Pluto in Aquarius can lead to the mob. It's quite out of control. I mean, the French Revolution was not too that pleasant, right? But, so there's also like pros and cons, to this, and yes, pros and cons. Okay, Neptune, celestial world, Saturn, mundane world. And Neptune, the high frequency, the spiritual, the mystical, the dreamy, imaginative, poetic, musical, ecstatic states. Fog, illusion, delusion. Opiates, pharmaceuticals, oil, and Saturn, objective awareness, what works, doesn't work. Teaches us how to grow, change, and evolve, fight limitations and boundaries. It's solidifying responsible, disciplined, and elder wisdom. Also restriction, crystallization, rigid, overly controlling, negating, and cold. Yes. So Neptune is a celestial world planet and resonates with Pisces. Have we been learning more compassion, getting more spiritual, being good Samaritans, or have we been escaping reality, using drugs, and becoming addicted to comfort, convenience, and entertainment? And by the way, our endocrine systems, Pisces rules endocrines, have been getting really whacked out. Saturn, the mundane world planet, has been trying to direct some people to get real with all that spiritual stuff that they've been learning, put it into practice. Some have gotten the message, like preppers, that we needed to prepare for a future when we might not have access to everything we have today. As these planets move into Aries, a multitude of perspectives go into action. I mean, we've just heard a few perspectives tonight. I mean, everybody's got a perspective, a slightly different slant on things, And so with them going into Aries, the action, sign of action, it's going to, all these perspectives are going to come to light and start acting out, right? Okay, so Aries Mystery School. In shamanic astrology, we call it the culture bearer, the Aries, the Cancer, the Libra, the Capricorn. These are on the front lines of the, because they're a solstice, equinox. These are on the front lines. And the Aries Mystery School is a fire, masculine, evolutionary, actional, non-relational, characterized by action, competition, doing, nobility of purpose and honor and righteousness and valor. And Chris Renstrom was talking about that on Astrology Hub today. These planets going into Aries, like bring back the age of chivalry. The Knights of the Round Table, King Arthur's Round Table, they had this code. It was the, kindness and compassion and no violence, all this wonderful code. So maybe we could get a bit of this going again with Neptune and Saturn going into Aries. Historical themes and stories, Kshatriya, protecting the priesthood, Brahmins, the samurai in service to a lord or master, soldiers and warriors, generals and quarterbacks. It's the spiritual path of the householder, the warrior protector. You look at the feminine, it's the she-bear that's protecting her cubs. The shadow expression, though, is fighting for the sake of fighting. Extreme self-absorption, no empathy or compassion, ruthless black and white fundamentalism. And as Susie alluded to, yes, we've got some of that polarization going on between the class system, the haves not, the conservatives, and everything is, it's become so black and white in some people's minds. You're either this or you're either with that, and they're ready to fight over. And they're talking about how in the Aries, the people who are of the QT transgender, that whole, they're going to be worried about being on ostrich, even more so than now, but they could be, killed. Yes, thank you. let's not mince words. Just gonna say. Okay, so the 0 degrees of Aries. Nice. This is the only picture I could find that really there she is. The 0 degree of Aries, the Aries point, vernal equinox. Remember when Uranus crossed it? That was back in March of 2010. Uranus crossed twice, May 2010 and the second time March 12, 2011. That was the Fukushima disaster. And then it's conjunct the star Shiat, which is in the constellation of Pegasus. Ptolemy compares it to Mars and Mercury, Robeson to murder and drowning, Eberton to the great flow of creativity, and Rigger, a fellow named Rigger, to turbulence, and then Brady to intelligence and yes, there are my logic. Yes, intelligence and logic. Intellect and logic. Sabian symbol, a woman has risen out of the ocean. That's why that statue there, the woman risen out of the ocean, the seal is embracing her, leaving the past behind in order to emerge into a whole new era of existence and activities, Linda Hill. And the keynote is emergence of new forms and of the potentiality of consciousness. And that was Dane Rudyard. Saturn and Neptune have been in Aries at the same time over the last 5,000 years, 44 times, but they have been conjunct only 12 times in Aries over that 5,000 year period. And we're coming up to number 13. Actually, this probably goes with, and so here I had then my notes. This Neptune and Saturn crossing the 0 degree of Aries could be the best of times or the worst of times situation. So much possibility, imagination, plus grounded reality. We could create a new way of being with the earth as envisioned. There's been a lot of people envisioning that over the last 14 years of Neptune in Pisces. But then again, on the other hand, the polarization due to delusion, propaganda, beliefs, true or unfounded that cause us to war against each other. There is a possibility of the states calling for a new constitutional convention. And that goes along with that Pluto in Aquarius too. Pluto was in the middle, about 14 degrees of Aquarius when the Constitution was ratified. So US is still in the midst of its Pluto return. Now, Neptune and fire signs can bring inflation. Neptune was in Sagittarius 1970 to 84, when in 1974, the US had a severe recession. When Jimmy Carter became president, inflation skyrocketed, and the worst part being between 75 and 81. It was an astrologer in the 1920s that noticed the connection between inflation and Neptune in fire signs. Okay. Uranus, the celestial world, lightning bolts of sudden inspiration, cathartic jolts, radical assemblage points. We think of Uranus in shamanic astrology, we think of it as shifting the assemblage point, something like out of Don Juan or something, Castaneda, Carlos Castaneda. Don Juan would shift Carlos's assemblage point, and all of a sudden he'd see things entirely differently, or he could fly or something. But high-speed technology, for sure, air travel, space exploration, and a radically expanded worldview. While in Taurus, we know that the planet has been shaken up with a lot of earthquakes and volcanoes and hurricanes. And the trouble is we don't know exactly how much of whatever is happening is influenced by geoengineering, which has been ongoing for a long time. And Uranus, this has been in Taurus, could be indicating that humans have kind of lost control. I mean, really, they thought they were going to be humans think to have the arrogance to think that they could step in and be like God and maneuver things to their own liking. Well, sometimes I get the feeling that they might have lost a little bit of control. Their mechanization may have caused more imbalance. How about the unnatural frequencies and the satellites surrounding the Earth and the effect on all Earth's creatures? There's the native prophecies that show the spider web around the planet. And here we have a zillion satellites up there now. And so that astronomers are complaining if they take exposure negatives for a while, they can just saw these lights going across the sky. We won't get into the drones yet. Well, we're coming up. We're coming up to the drone. Okay. Chiron. The US is right in its Chiron return. It's occurring in March, okay, along with a lot of other things going on in March, ending the more than a 1.5 year initiation cycle. The US has a fracture point here in Aries that it hasn't healed. I like this quote. It's a Leonard Cohen quote from a song. So ring the bells that can still ring. Forget your perfect offering. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. So the US interference in countries around the world, as well as their arrogance in colonizing this country through the use of military force, will sooner or later backfire. Colonizing this country and trying to police the world. Well, when are our troops going to say, I will not comply? I'm done. I'm not going to comply. Well, right now they're doing it by committing suicide. A lot of the military, it's a big ongoing problem. It also speaks to the use of military grade weapons and tactics by police forces right here in our country. Okay, a lot to think about as we look at right now we're coming up to the December solstice, and we can see, people are a little bit worried, just a little bit. The chart this is for Tucson right here, and it shows that we're pretty concerned with this, with that T-square there, people, the moon, Jupiter in the 9th house, Saturn in the 6th. there's a lot of worry about what this talk about tariffs is going to do to the fruit and vegetable traffic, that are being brought from Mexico. Is it going to increase how much we're going to have to pay for fruit and vegetables? How's it going to affect the people's business? How's it going to affect our neighbors to the south? I mean, we depend upon them a lot to come in and spend money here, and yet they're going to create more problems with the border. It's all here in the solstice chart. And
I want to say I go to the dentist in Dallas pretty regularly, and last December I stood online for almost 2 hours. And I asked them, "What is this about?" And they were all pulling really large suitcases. They were all coming up here to shop.
Yes, okay. So someone
I was like, "Oh God, is that what it is?"
Someone in the audience is talking.
Visiting, but it really struck me. And I don't know if I want to go down there this December, but I feel like I need to go down there before January 20th.
Well, the mandates, back in the 2020 and 2021 really hurt the business down in Nogales. A lot of stores shut down. But what's coming up is again making everybody pretty nervous. I put this chart up, and the next one's going to be of what the solstice looks like in Washington. And there's a whole sign difference. We're out here in the Southwest, and so we have Libra rising here. The end of Libra rising 25. I'm using whole sign houses in case anybody doesn't recognize them, but whole sign houses. We've got Libra rising, and so we're really concerned about our friends to the south. And we're on the front lines of having to deal with incoming traffic and from over the border, and a lot of talk about the drugs coming over the border and what's really going on. I mean, there's a lot of speculation about what's going on. And this Mars-Pluto opposition, there's much to. The Mars-Pluto opposition is happening very close to the midheaven, but again in the 11th to the 5th house here in Tucson. I'm sorry. There's the Washington chart. You can see that Washington has Scorpio rising, and what resonates with Scorpio, Mars and Pluto. So it seems to me that this country is probably going to be really interfering. They're already doing things with it, bombing where they shouldn't be bombing over there, and other countries, and sending weapons and so forth. And but also that T-square ends up in being in the houses associated with fixed signs and with money and financial concerns. Yes, so a lot of talk about that, financial concerns, and what is going to happen. Yeah. Okay, and here's the New Year's chart, whole sign houses, and at the exact at 12 a.m. And in Washington, as Libra rising, and the moon is coming up to the conjunction of Pluto, so it's kind of triggering that whole Mars-Pluto opposition. And then you notice, of course, the Jupiter-Saturn square. What was in the solstice, Jupiter's at 14 going retrograde, and Saturn was at 13. Well, they've swapped degrees here. And so you could say they're kind of leaving that exact square, but still it's affecting the people. The constriction is on jobs and health, concern about health, and the Jupiter in the 9th house are how are we getting along with our foreigners, with other countries. It's also about education. There's a lot of concern about the education. I mean, Arizona could lose half of its teachers. They're really just unhappy with, and I could go back to but they're really unhappy with how much they're getting paid, or not how little they're getting paid. So, but there's a lot in between these two houses, the 9th house and the 6th house. Now, this is interesting. Where does that Jupiter-Saturn play out in our country? And that line, it's a paran, taken from where they cross. And they cross, the line is right there, crossing right in that part of Texas that's associated with the Rio Grande down there. And that line, if you take it and make a line for that latitude, and you can see it's all along that southern border. Jupiter, Saturn, expansion and contraction, that push-pull between these two planets.
It's on the eclipse point.
What?
Yeah, full eclipse. That's spot in southern Texas. It's on the eclipse point.
The eclipse point. Yes.
Right where they cross.
Right where they cross in Houston, Texas, and that's on the you're on Mercury. That's the Mercury on the IC crosses at Houston, Texas. And there's the line continuing on through China. And of course, we have some push-pull going there. But I thought what's interesting with this was the Mars and of course, I can't see it very well either, but the Mars, the red line, and Pluto, they're going right through Korea, North and South Korea. That Mars-Pluto opposition at New Year's is going right through. Now this, something, for us, we want to get, the U.S. is involved in everything. and what's this going to mean for our interaction with Korea? And then this next slide shows that Jupiter-Saturn line, and it's crossing the Pluto on the ascendant and Mars on the descendant right there in Iran, and the moon also crosses in Iran. And you know that the person coming into office of president, he's got a lot to, he could stir up some more trouble with Iran. I mean, it's not just him, but there's a lot going on. We could be stirring up more trouble with Iran, insisting that they do something that we won't do. Worried about their nuclear capabilities. But anyway, just some food for thought. Watch how it plays out. So here's the March equinox. This is pretty. I mean, we've got nice trines between the moon in Sag, moon and Juno in Sag, and the Venus and Mercury, and Sun, Venus, Mercury in Aries. So this is for Washington too. But Pluto's on the ascendant. Okay, Pluto's on the ascendant. In Aquarius, let's see. Will it be power of the people or what? And there again, this chart, you've got the Mercury and Mars, or that yellow line that's going through there. Going right through is Israel, Jordan, Iraq, and it's crossing Mars right there in Iran. Yes, Mercury and Mars. Crossing Mars on the ascendant. Okay. Okay, March equinox. For Tucson, as being really down to earth about it. I mean, I like the fact that the trine that shows there's some easing of tension, even though we have the Mars square Chiron. And so we're the military or the police, the border patrol. Yes, they're going to be interacting a lot with our in that house of 7th house to the 4th house. homeland, and the house of open enemies. Yes, sometimes, seventh house of open enemies. Okay. But overall, the people are feeling that ease of tension in those trines. Okay, now Venus, Mercury, and Neptune accentuate the Aries point. Susie pointed out a lot about that Venus and Mercury retrograde periods. And it just so happens that Venus conjuncts Neptune right there at 27 Pisces before she ingresses into Aries on February 4th. Then Venus goes retrograde as the evening star Leo goddess. This is at the end of the whole Venus cycle, that 580-day cycle that starts for shamanic astrology, people who practice shamanic astrology, with Venus rising heliacally before the sun. That's where we start the cycle. And so she rose as she rose as the Leo goddess back in August of 2023, and she's going to be finishing that up. And this is when she goes retrograde, that evening star. You can still see her. You can see it's beautiful. And watch when the moon comes to conjunction, that new moon with Venus. Okay, so the evening star Leo goddess goes retrograde at 10 Aries. It conjuncts the sun in what we call the transitional underworld, because this is when Venus is between the earth and the sun, and she's kind of like changing into a new goddess. And that's meets the sun at 2 Aries. She returns to Pisces. Oh, and she conjuncts Neptune at 29 Pisces, just before Neptune goes into Aries. I can't help but think there's something that we gather from this interaction, those things that we love, those ethics gather something from Neptune. It's a long stay in Pisces. And then the Venus retrograde rises before the sun as the new morning star warrior goddess, 28 degrees Pisces. So what's the morning star warrior goddess? What's that going to be like? That's like a goddess that brings that compassion, that feeling for people, for all that grief too, that we experience, that we've been experiencing with Neptune and Pisces, that feeling of grieving for all the children that are being killed, all the animals, everything. There's this. She's rising as the heliacal morning star warrior goddess in Pisces, carrying this whole feeling of compassion and grieving for the children, people, planet. During the same time, the Mercury retrograde returns to Pisces and conjoins Neptune. So she's playing in the part in this too. Neptune goes into Aries on March 30. April 16, Mercury goes into Aries and conjoins Neptune. And in April 17, there's this other piece of the puzzle. Mars in Leo, ingress into Leo, trine Neptune. And then finally, at the end of April, Venus ingress into Aries. When Venus meets with Neptune and Aries that second time, does Venus remind us that love and compassion is not weak? It's not about fixing or taking care of people, but about allowing people to have their own path, allowing people to have their own path. And does this Venus take the warrior sword and fight for her children out of a fierce love? Does rage stemming from grief propel the action? Okay, this might be the Pisces goddess, but when she gets into Aries, she's going to be carrying that sword for her children. Okay. Another picture that Venus meets Saturn way out there, there's an ocean. You can't really see it, but we know that Venus meeting with Saturn, there's an ocean out there too. Adding Venus to the Saturn story, Venus meets with Saturn mid-January in time for the inauguration. Let's see. And then Venus meets again with Saturn and stays really close proximity, several weeks in April, both in retrograde and direct motion, while she's in Pisces. And what might that be talking about? You know, what we, really taking some measures to concretely put something into action that is good for other people, or was it going to be more about me, Aries? Okay, Saturn ingresses into Aries May 26 and then turns retrograde July 13 and returns to Pisces. Yeah, Venus meeting with Saturn in January makes us wonder if the old guard's taking back over. Yeah. And Venus and Saturn in April may see more to eye and looking to create more structures to care for people properly, perhaps. Healing, about talking about healthcare. Maybe there's something that really gets realized with Venus conjunct Saturn and Aries as to healthcare. We'll see. Now the Mars cycle begins a new cycle January 15. Now again, in shamanic astrology, we look at that cycle of Mars starting since it's further out than Earth, we don't look at when it rises likely before the sun, and we look at it when it opposes the sun, and that's coming up real soon, January 15. That will be Mars at its brightest. Look, the sun will be setting, Mars will be rising. You'll be able to witness another planet, another planet. Jupiter will be well up in the sky. Jupiter just opposed the sun a couple of weeks back, not even that, a little over a week back. And that's when Jupiter was at its brightest.
It was brilliant.
Jupiter coming up, sun setting. So look forward to Mars coming up when the sun sets. January 15 is 26 degrees Cancer, Capricorn. Mars opposition Pluto. That was, as Susie mentioned, Susie mentioned these dates. Don't need to remind you. First time November 3rd, second time right after New Year's. Yes, we saw that in the chart. And then the third time is this heroic Mars in Cancer now, taking on the role of Cancer is going to be carrying this story forward. The heroic Mars on its new journey, ready to meet challenges, opposes Pluto on April 26 in Leo Aquarius. And Pluto and Aquarius, dare we question why we're asked to sacrifice ourselves for the greater good, and who's asking us to do that? We've looked forward to the Christ returning through the people as spiritual beings instead of an avatar. Well, and with Pluto and Aquarius, what needs composting? Science? Oh, just believe the science. Oh, who's paying for the science? Okay, that's one of the things. This Mars in Leo opposing it might try to say, I'm the avatar you've been waiting for. And in current times, this might be the military taking what it wants for the corporate king. Okay. Now, it's come to my attention, there's a lot of drones. We're hearing a lot about drones. Well, it appears that you can have drones as small as a fingertip. And they can be anywhere and you might not see them. Yeah. Amazingly sneaky, small and sneaky. And this is World War III might not look like any other war, World War I or II. No, it's not going to look like that. Drones are already being used in Ukraine and Russia by the Israelis, all these other countries. What are they hiding? I mean, if the US military isn't all over these drones that they're seeing on the East Coast, what's going on, right?
I don't think it's going to be weapons first. It's going to be technology.
Loudly.
It's not gonna be weapons first, it's probably gonna be technology.
You're right, right.
That's why all
And
the
these,
birds-
and drones can use the amazing carriers of technology while they're seeing everything and they can do a lot without us declaring war on any place, and they have been for some time. The chart, let's see. So there's this Mars opposition Pluto. There it is at the exact opposition in April 26. This chart may indicate all-out war, but the Pluto in Aquarius does suggest the use of drones and other technology to get its way. Open enemies are suggested by that. The sun is in the seventh house. Huh? April 26, 2025, and the 9:05 p.m. in Washington, 9:05 p.m. Washington. I'm doing all these charts from Washington because that's basically about our country. So the T-square, when Mars opposes Pluto exactly, involves the sun in Taurus. And then it's in a Mars is trine the Neptune and Venus. So it's very trine that Neptune. It's going to be telling us a lot of mainstream media why we need to do this or what's happening. Well, what's happening is not that's not what they're going to be telling you for sure. Anyway, the sixth house planets indicate the military or the police forces are engaged, but the trine from Mars to Venus and Pisces and Neptune and Aries suggests the war is still in the process of gathering our sympathies. Yes, there it is. Gathering our sympathies through illusion, rhetoric, stories, media. The solstice. You will notice that on the solstice in June 20, 5 days prior to the solstice on June 15, Mars squares Uranus and Jupiter squares Saturn. And then the moon trigger happens on the 16th to the Mars Uranus and on the 18th to the Jupiter Saturn. So they were coming into the solstice with a lot of tension, the moon triggering these major squares. By the time we get the June solstice, I mean, the Mars has gone into Virgo, but it just finished also trining Chiron. So where's the military going to be called into action? But we have a nice trine from the moon to Mars at June solstice. The Sun-Neptune opposition balanced by Uranus and that was the next line. My notes got kind of jiggled. But over and over again, there is the possibility of people being influenced by fear, the propaganda of fear. And we've got to be aware of that and not let ourselves be manipulated through our fear. I mean, really, we have the power to change the channel. I think, with the TV and they got the remote. Okay, I'm done with that negative, that power, that manipulation of the media to want to make us fear or want us to believe that we need to do this. No, I'm going to change the channel. So I think this is a really cool aspect picture for the fall equinox. It's quite beautiful, very interesting. I mean, we've got the grand trine and then the sextiles from yes, Susie pointed out, the Mars trine Uranus is also sextiling the Saturn Neptune on either side of the Pisces, on either side of that 0 point Aries. And Chiron and Eris a conjunct have just been opposed by Mars, September 16. Our military's probably been called into action. The Sun-Neptune opposition is balanced by the Uranus and Pluto. And the Moon-Mercury opposing series is evident too. The Moon opposing series, who's now in Aries. So again, I referred to that Aries as, you've got planets like Venus or Ceres in this, and it brings out the mother bear. The mother bear, taking care of her children, springing into action. Okay. The December solstice. Oh gosh, now that Mars is conjunct the Sun, and it's aspecting Ceres very strongly. And Pluto's not exactly in the picture. It's quite a ways from the ascendant. Moon opposes Jupiter, though. So again, the expansion and the people, there's something going on between again, our health and employment. People aren't what they hoped for as having good employment is questionable. There's some, the Moon grumbling behind the scenes. There's a lot of grumbling, I think, behind the scenes, because that manifestation of benefit hasn't happened, like they had hoped for. People had hoped for. So, and this is something I put in some of these slides I've taken from my what I did for our totems webinar last year. But it's no way to sugarcoat the alignment of Saturn, Neptune in cahoots with Uranus and Pluto. We are in a spiritual battle, and we incarnated at this time to engage in the forces of absolute negativity. Have been working to have ultimate control of this planet for a long time. But we're here to fight for the life of this planet we love, for our souls, for our children. Now pay attention. The negative forces of materialism have us all hooked into the belief we need something outside of us to fix us, that we need something only money can buy. When there's no money, well, the money is worthless, or, the inflation. We have to come to grips with this. If what we have is our community, our brothers and sisters, are you connected to farmers in your area, local farmers? Are you connected with people that have skills to survive? Have you made these connections, with the farmers market here in town, or locally? Buy produce that is grown locally. I found some that mix I made the mix I brought to the potluck came from Sprouts. It's a Sky Ranch. Our local farmer is selling that through Sprouts. So stay connected. Love each other wherever you are. Love is the ultimate Neptune message, and discipline is Saturn's. Discipline and love. We're responsible for what we think, for the messages we believe. Be curious. That's Uranus and Gemini. Be curious. Always question what you hear. Check the source. Pluto in Aquarius, check the source. Know your true source. And may the force be with you.
Do you have a printout of that?
No, I don't.
Oh, it's nice.
Thank you. And then, oh, there it. A meme I got off the Thank you all for bearing with me. Thank you all.